Hey guys, this is John with KDX Designs. Today we're going to be working on sharpening our leather and laser skills. What I'm working on are 3 leather coasters that are all being made at the same time. I'm going to show you how I go about turning a piece of veg tan leather and some 1/8 inch plywood into an amazing luxury leather coaster. Like all of my laser projects, they end up in light burn, and here I am in the final steps of preparing to burn. Right, so we're just making sure that the project is centered and framed correctly. And this is where I'm going to double check the speed and feed settings and make sure I turn on air assist. That's that little 90-degree guy coming out of the nozzle there. So what I'm working with here is a XTool D1. It's just a 10-watt diode laser, and with the settings I have it for right now, it'll take about 15 minutes to burn and cut this out the way I like it. So we'll just speed through this. I'm sure you've seen some other projects being burnt before, so nothing too amazing here, other than it's a laser. What you might notice is it looks a little bit dark and charred, but when we clean it off, it ends up looking great. So here it is, fresh out of a rinsed water bath. It was brushed off and then just run under cold water. It still looks a little bit dark, but when this dries, it ends up looking great. But all that char you saw from the burn before is gone. So what we're going to work on here is putting some stitching into the project. Now this is completely decorative. It has no function whatsoever other than it looks awesome. So I'm just going through here hole by hole, which was cut out by the laser. Makes it super easy. And I go in one hole, out the next, and then I end up doubling back and going through the previous hole. So each one of these actually gets poked through twice. And I just work my way around until we come back to the beginning, and hopefully we have 2 tails. Sometimes, you know, thread isn't so cooperative, ends up breaking, you have to rethread the needle. End product still ends up looking great. You just have to tie a couple different knots. So we will speed through the end to the end of this where, yeah, I just end up tying this off with a square knot. So tying that up took about 15 minutes. It really goes pretty quick if you get in the groove. What we're doing here is some wet molding. Got a damp piece of leather and a die and this top part that has a bevel on the inside that's going to help round over the edge of the leather and turn it into a saucer shape. So we're just going to get things lined up. Get it as centered as possible. You gotta take your time here. You want it to be pretty much perfect. And once it's lined up, we'll just get some clamps on there. And I usually just let it set up overnight. I just let it dry naturally. I haven't ever put a hair dryer or anything on it. It would probably work just fine. I just usually am not in that huge of a rush. So once we get this guy clamped up, we've got another one in the wings that will be doing the exact same process. Pulling this guy out of the mold the next day, you can see that the leather has dried. That dark, shadowy look is gone. It's just a nice, clean piece of raw leather. And we've got the 3D saucer shape that we're looking for. This guy is going to be ready for an insert. His partner, however, needs a little work. I was not happy with the shading of the recessed areas on this piece. So we're going to do a little antiquing. I'm going to open up a small jar of this antique finish and basically just apply this oily goo onto the surface, rub it into the recesses, and once it is all covered, we will wipe it off before it has a chance to dry and set it aside, and then let it really dry for a couple hours. What we're looking at here is two pieces of 1/8 inch plywood. The bottom piece is a solid disc, and the top piece has these holes cut out into it. And in those holes is where I get some substance, some weight into the coaster. I happen to be using some lead shot that I had laying around, and I'm just gluing it up with some PVA or some Type Bond, some wood glue. In this case, it's just whatever I had on hand. This will end up taking a couple hours to dry. If I'm in a hurry on this step, I will use some CA and some accelerator, and you are good to go. Once this thing has been dried up, I will apply some Barge cement, some Barge contact cement to both sides of the leather disc that we already made and the back side of the insert, and press those together. I've been told that the contact cement works best when you give it a little tap with the hammer, so you'll see that happening. And I have two more behind it, ready for glue up. Now it is time for the back plate. All I'm doing here is getting rid of any of the wood grain that's passing through. When these two pieces get together, I don't want there to be any light on that wood. So I just darken it in with a Sharpie. And here is applying the Barge cement. The part that I really am trying to focus on is that outer edge. I don't want that lifting up. So you put this stuff on both sides of the material, and you actually let it dry. I mean, tacky is okay, but dry is just fine. So there it is. It's not sticking to my fingers. And here we're just going to press these together and get them lined up exactly. Back into the mold. I want to make sure the edges are going to stay down, so I'm just inverting the mold from when we actually formed the disc to where I get some sharp edges to hold that edge down. And I'll sit in here for a couple hours, and we are going to be in the home stretch. The final step in putting these coasters together is to get the cork bottom on. This is going to protect the surface that it is eventually going to sit on. These are just 3.5-inch discs that are sourced off of Amazon. I've got my logo burned onto the bottom of it. Gonna center these up and call it good. Hey, I hope you learned something here today. If you found this useful at all, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Consider a subscribe, and maybe we can put some more of these together.